Everything you love was once a project. The apps you tap, the bridges you cross, the shows you stream. None of them happened by accident. Behind every one of them was a dream, a team, and a project manager trying to hold it all together. I'm Rick Morris, and this is AI Driven PM, the show where project managers stop playing games, embrace reality, and use AI to make dreams come true without burning out their people. Each week, we'll blend real world project war stories with practical ways to put AI to work. How to plan smarter, negotiate better dates, protect your team, and focus on the work that actually moves the needle. If you ever thought there has to be a better way to do this, then you're in the right place. Let's get to work. This is AI Driven PM. Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 6 of AI Driven PM Season 2. Today, we're going to be talking about net operating value, which is kind of a metric that I helped develop to help tell different stories. But we're going to, again, talk about utilizing some metrics and some data points to help us tell a little bit of a different story, this time around portfolio management. That's the PM portion that we're talking about today. So, why do we see executives maybe allow projects to run that they shouldn't, or kill projects that you thought were going great? Generally, again, it's because we're showing project success or specific metrics that were success versus portfolio value. And so remember, everything that we're trying to really drive towards is that value base. So for a portfolio issue, especially as a project manager, we'll try to be taking this from a project perspective, looking at a larger portfolio side. But most project managers will optimize their own project in isolation, right? And just we'll find our own path and try to figure out what we're doing there. But executives really need to be able to optimize the entire portfolio across competing priorities. And so without a shared language for value, PMs and executives can kind of talk past each other. And so this is why we came up with net operating value. So net operating value is basically your expected value minus the effort, risk cost, and opportunity cost. And so it allows us to kind of give us a little bit more of an apples to apples. It's not just return on investment, but also accounts for one of the biggest questions is what else could we be doing? And it forces kind of an honest conversation about trade-offs. Now, I've done NOV in two different ways. One that I just explained. Another one is current year value. So a net operating value could be, what would be our current year revenue versus current year cost and an immediate cash flow impact. Is another way to look at it. But today we're just going to talk about this from an NOV perspective at a portfolio level. So again, why NOV matters in an AI-driven world is AI can make execution easier. And so we have this tendency to think, oh, we're going to be able to do more projects, right? And we should. I've already got clients looking at it and going, oh, well, if our velocity, by a team is 270 points with AI, we should be able to do 389 points. And I've seen two that I've either seen them increase it that way or reduce the number of story points. I've seen them subtract as well, saying, oh, these are the human story points left over after AI. Either way, the way I coach it, the points are the points. It doesn't matter if AI is doing it or a human's doing it. Points are still the points. So hopefully we should see a velocity increase. But if we can do more velocity, then we can do more features, then the thought pattern is, oh, we're just going to throw more at it. But can we build it is the wrong question. It's not the question we should be asking. It's should we build it giving everything else we could build, right? So it's like, oh, do we have capacity to do this feature? Sure, but is that the feature we should be working on across all the other features? I teased 210 a little bit in the last episode, and that's where 210 comes into play too. Is like we need to be 2 full quarters ahead in ideas that we could be bringing into quarterly planning, and 2 full sprints ahead of fully ready user stories with design and architecture and everything else done, so that we do have that natural competing, tension of should we be doing this versus this, right? It's not can we do it, it's should we do it. And it's a little bit of a different a question to ask. So the components of net operating value, you have your expected value, which is your revenue, your cost savings, your strategic positioning, your user impact. You have your effort cost, which is your time, your budget, your team capacity. You have your risk cost, which is your probability of failure times your impact of failure. And then you have your opportunity cost, which is what we're not doing because we're doing this. So today's focus is we're going to calculate NOV for our project. We're going to use AI to stress test our value assumptions. And then we're going to compare our project's NOV to alternatives. So again, this is just additional context in helping AI help us think and help us be able to position our projects better to get that influence that we need in order to get date, time, budget, any of the things that we're going after. So our non-negotiable experiment this week is to calculate the true net value of your project, including an opportunity cost. So that's our quick lead in. It was a little bit faster today, but we're going to go ahead and let Centric Consulting say hello to us. And when we come back, we'll have the screens up and we'll get into our prompts.
In today's economy, leaders are looking for a different kind of consulting partner. A partner that will work with you to understand your culture, technology, and employees. A partner that will develop the solutions you need, not the solutions they know best. For us, it's never been about simply checking a box. Since we were founded in 1999, Centric Consulting has established a reputation for solving its clients' toughest problems by delivering flexible, tailored, cost-efficient solutions, all centered on the right outcomes for each business. It's all part of our mission to deliver an unmatched experience you won't get anywhere else. Centered on what's best for you, Centric is ready to guide you on the journey ahead.
And we're back, and we're going to go through our first prompt today, which is your non-negotiable experiment. Is our NOV calculator. So here's the prompt itself. It says you are a portfolio strategist and a financial analyst for project investments. First, ask me 5 to 7 clarifying questions about the project's expected benefits, costs, risks, and what else the organization could be doing with the same resources. Then calculate a net operating value assessment by answering what is the expected value of this project, which is your revenue, cost savings, strategic value, user impact. Quantify as much of that as possible. What is the total effort cost? So budget, team capacity, and person months, timeline. What is the risk cost? So your probability of failure or underperformance times the financial impact of that. What is the opportunity cost? So what alternative projects or initiatives are we not doing because of this? What is the calculated NOV and how does it compare to a baseline threshold for project approval? And then what assumptions are most uncertain and how would changing them affect our net operating value? So the project we're going to give it to evaluate is our social wishing app that we've been using throughout this season. So the potential user base, so expected benefits. Potential user base is 10,000 users in 90 days, $50,000 of revenue in year 1. Our revenue model is freemium with premium features at $4.99 a month, and we're hoping for a 10% conversion rate. Your strategic value is it establishes us in social impact and community building space. Our costs was $300,000 budget. Our timeline was 6 months. We have 8 people, so 5 engineers, 2 designers, and 1 QA, and they're fully dedicated. Our risks are that we're completely dependent on our Facebook API, so they could change terms or shut us down. Viral growth assumption is, what if we don't hit our 10,000 users? And monetization, so what if conversion is 2%, not 10%? Opportunity cost, it says what we're not building is a new feature for our existing flagship product that could drive $500,000 in upsell revenue with 80% confidence. So that's our prompt. Let's pop these in and let's see what it's going to do for us. So again, I've got ChatGPT 5.2 up and Sonnet 4.6. So it's going to start asking us some questions. I'm just going to make up a bunch of numbers just so we can see it. But again, great questions to be asking. So it says, what is your gross margin on subscription revenue? For example, after hosting, payment processing, support, and marketing, do you keep 90%, 70%, or less? So we'll say 70%. Then it says, what is your expected churn rate for premium users? Monthly churn drives lifetime value. So we'll say 30% churn rate. Then are you planning paid acquisition to hit 10,000 and 50,000 users or assuming organic growth? If paid, what is the expected customer acquisition cost per user, or CAC, if you've not heard that one before. We'll say we'll do paid, and it is $11 in CAC. Then is the 10,000 in 90 days an assumption based or based on prior launches with similar conversion and engagement? We're going to say that is an assumption. And then what is the expected lifetime of this product before major reinvestment or sunset? 2 years or 3 years? We'll say 2 years. And then if Facebook API access is restricted, what % of core functionality breaks? 30% inconvenience or total shutdown? I'll say total shutdown. And then it says if Facebook API, that was the one, if $300,000 fully loaded costs, including overhead and internal opportunity costs of those 8 people, I will say yes. And so we've answered that question. Now, it looks like we had a little bit of an issue with Claude today. We're going to ask it again. We'll see if it comes back. Yep, here we go. So it's going to ask probably relatively same questions. So I'm going to cut and paste the answers that I put here. I don't know if it even makes sense to it, but we'll see what it does with it. So it says, good, now we'll run with these numbers. So gross margin, 70%. It assumed, I just said 70%, so it assumed 70% on hitting 10,000 users in Claude. But in any case, the unit economics, it starts to run it down. So it says monthly price, margin at 70%, 30% churn, lifetime contribution per premium users, $11. Lifetime value is $11. Your CAC is $11. So net unit contribution per converted user is 63 cents. That's razor thin. It assumes a 10% conversion. Yeah, these are tough numbers. So it's a premium lifetime contribution. So we're spending $550,000 to acquire users that generate $58,000 in premium lifetime contribution. This is deeply negative unit. So it's telling us, hey, based on the numbers you gave us, you should not be doing this. But it runs all the way through and it continues to give you all the math, but it says your blunt financial conclusion. Here we go. At 30% monthly churn and $11 CAC, this is not an investment. It's an experiment with negative expected value. Could it be a little bit more harsh? Yeah. Your alternative project produces positive expected contribution of $280,000 with far lower uncertainty. So I would build, it's telling us based on this, you should build the flagship feature. Fantastic, right? So again, instead of just going off a gut feel, it's starting to run the numbers. Let's see what Claude says. It basically says user acquisition cost reality check first. That's a problem right away. So acquiring 50,000 users costs $550,000 in CAC alone, which exceeds your budget by $250,000. Either means your CAC assumption breaks down at scale, or you're expecting significant organic viral growth to carry the load. It gives us a revenue projection, tells us the risk cost. So it calculates all of that. The opportunity cost is $400,000. So basically right now, our NOV calculation is negative $702,000. So it says the project has a strongly negative NOV. So for context, a typical approval threshold for a speculative new project at this investment level would require at least above a 0 NOV and preferably around $150,000 to $300,000 to justify the risk premium of safer alternatives. So really kind of, and then we asked like, what would we need to change it? And Claude did a better job than ChatGPT in answering this question, but it was like your conversion rate, you should probably go from 10 to 28. User growth confidence should be 95. API risk should be less than 5%. Opportunity cost risk adjusted. And your churn rate needs to be down to 10%. So it says the conversion rate sensitivity is the most telling. You'd need nearly 3 times your target conversion to reach break even. That's not a pessimistic scenario. It's the math of your current model. So bottom line, this project as currently scoped is a high risk negative NOV bet being made while leaving a high confidence $400,000 return on the table. So there it is. right? This is exactly what NOV is designed to do, but also to help us look at a lot of these different features. And that was done inside, 4 minutes. Now, again, we got to have the data to give it to it. And I get that portion, but you see how quickly we can start to do this. Now, imagine analyzing an entire portfolio, across this. And that's where the power of like a net operating value or any of this stuff here. Let's get into our next prompt. In this prompt, we're going to talk about a value assumption stress test. So it says, you're a critical thinking coach and a risk analyst. So ask me 3 to 4 questions about the value assumption underlying my project's business case. Then stress test those assumptions by answering, what are the 3 to 5 core assumptions that must be true for this project to deliver its expected value? For each assumption, what is the best case, expected case, and worst case scenario? How sensitive is the project's NOV to changes in each assumption? What evidence or data exists to validate or challenge each assumption? And what experiments or MVPs could we run to de-risk the biggest assumptions before committing fully? I love this whole chain of thought, because what happens is we're not only are we stress testing it, but we're starting to look at what are things that we can do to de-risk the project, right? So the project business case says, hey, it's the social wishing app assumes that we're going to get 10,000 users in the first 90 days post-launch. It's going to be only viral growth via Facebook sharing, 30% wish fulfillment rate, 10% conversion to premium users. Users will trust the platform with personal bucket list information. Facebook will maintain stable API access and not change terms, and organic growth via network effects, which means low cost customer. We're going to reduce that CAC that we talked about. Are these assumptions realistic, and how do I test them before we're 6 months and $300,000 in? So I'm going to put up. We'll make sure that I've cut and paste the right option here, as it's remembering my answers from before. So we will paste these in, and let's let it get to work. So before I stress test answer these, have you launched any consumer social product before with measurable conversion? What evidence do you have that people are already will already share wishes? Is there an existing wait list or beta list or community showing demand? And are you solving an urgent problem? So we'll say never launched before. What evidence do you have? People, no evidence, just a hunch that they'll share wishes. Is there any existing wait list? No wait list. And this is assumed demand. And then, are you solving an urgent problem or creating a new behavior? It's just not solving a problem, but I think it's cool. So we'll put that in. Claude has asked, what's the evidence behind the 30% wish fulfillment rate? We'll say no evidence. What does viral growth via Facebook sharing actually mean mechanically? Is there a design shared trigger? I'll say nope. Word of mouth. Have you talked to real users yet? No, I have not. And who owns the relationship with Facebook's API team? No relationship. So we're going to paint a very bleak picture here, and we'll see what it says. So it says, good. Now we're thinking clearly. You just removed most of the illusion from the business case. Let me walk you through this without emotion. First, here is the real questions. This is not solving a clear pain. Why would someone change behavior to use it? If there's no wait list, no beta, no prior launch data, what makes 10,000 users more likely than 500? Good question. If you're not confident people will pay, why is 10% conversion in the model? And if this is based on cool, what hard metric could prove it's not? So it says, now let's stress test this brutally. Core assumptions that must be true. People want to publicly share personal wishes. Others are motivated to help fulfill them. And at least 5 to 10% of users will pay for premium features. You can acquire users below their lifetime value, and Facebook does not disrupt you. And now it starts to walk you through, our best case, our expected case, our worst, our NOV sensitivity. It says from earlier math, at 30% churn, LTV is about 1163, at 2 to 3% conversion instead of 10%. Revenue collapses by 70%. And at 1,000 users, instead of 10,000 users, your momentum narrative dies. So Goes through my very bleak evidence available and then what I should do instead. And it says, if you want intellectual honesty, here's the right framing. This is not a $300,000 project build. It should be a $25,000 behavior experiment. So first, create a landing page, spend $3,000 to $5,000 in ads, and measure cost per email signup. If cost per signup exceeds $5 to $7, your organic growth assumption weakens. Your manual community test. So start a private group, invite 100 people manually, see who would post a wish and who would engage. These are really, really good ideas, right? So instead of investing in the full 300,000, it's now giving me some ideas to have a little bit lower cost to de-risk. And then also if those risks do become true, then we're out $25,000. We're not out $300,000. And so it's telling us that the things that we absolutely have to validate is engagement above 15%, conversion intent above 3%, and a customer acquisition cost of less than $7. And then Claude was like, let me be direct with you, Rick, not as a framework exercise, but as a straight read of where you are. Every single one of your load-bearing assumptions is unvalidated, and your answers just remove the four most common ways teams get away with that. Here's what I mean. No user research, no evidence for viral growth, no Facebook relationship. So it says, before I said the project had a negative NOV and suggested a lean MVP, I would sharpen that. The project isn't ready for any build investment yet, lean or otherwise. What it's ready for is a structured 45-day validation sprint costing roughly to $10,000 to $15,000 before a single engineering sprint begins. The question you should be bringing to your sponsor isn't should we build this, is can we spend $15,000 over 45 days to find out if we should build this before we commit the remainder of our budget. Fantastic, I think, counsel and the right direction here, given them what we gave it, right? That it's really bleak. We just got this cool idea, but how many of our projects start that way? Like, I've had several projects where CIOs come back from a conference and was like, hey, I saw this cool thing, we're going to do it. But we haven't really, we don't really know anything about it. So what I love about this prompt and using a value assumption stress test is it does help us try to not say no, but identify things that are a little bit less risk, a little bit less cost for us to go validate. And then if true, be able to, proceed down our path. So very cool prompt. Hopefully you enjoyed that and got something out of it as well. So the last prompt we'll do today, our third prompt is, you are a portfolio trade-off analyzer, or it's our portfolio trade-off analyzer, but you're a portfolio management consultant helping executives make investment decisions. Ask me 3 to 4 questions about the competing projects or initiatives in our portfolio and the organization's strategic priorities. Then provide a trade-off analysis answering, how do the competing projects compare on NOV? What projects are must-dos, meaning strategic imperatives versus nice-to-haves? What is the optimal portfolio mix given current capacity and risk tolerance? What projects should we greenlight, pause, or kill based on NOV? And how do I communicate trade-offs to stakeholders in a way that builds alignment rather than resentment? Again, great question. Making sure that we're staying positive and that we're using good terminology and good coaching on how we present this information. Now, the portfolio context is that we have 3 competing projects for the next 6 months. You have a social wishing app, which is a new product. Its expected value of $200,000 revenue year 1. It's strategic positioning and social impact space. It's going to cost $300,000, and there's high risk. Option B is our flagship product feature. So it's an upsell to existing customers. That's $500,000 year 1 with 80% confidence. It's $200,000 cost and low risk. Option C is an infrastructure modernization, which reduces our tech debt. It's $100,000 in cost savings, and it improves our velocity for future projects. Cost is $250,000 for 6 people, 5 months. Risk is medium. We only have capacity to do 2 of the 3. How do we choose? So that's the prompt we're going to put in. And we'll see what ChatGPT and Claude tells us. So before I recommend a portfolio decision, answer these. What is the primary strategic priority for the next 12 months? What is your risk tolerance right now? How constrained is engineering capacity? And is there external pressure? Great questions. But it says, I'm going to go ahead and analyze based on data provided. Claude is asking questions, so it's not assuming. That's good. But it did ask 4 questions, and it's going to go ahead and run its full analysis. So we'll skip the questions for now, just for time's sake. And we'll get into this. It says now it'll analyze based on the data. So it looks at the trade-off analysis by NOV. It then would go through the must-do for nice-to-haves, and then your optimal portfolio mix. It says I can do 2 of the 3. The rational combination is option B plus option C. Why? Option B funds growth. Option C protects future velocity and reduces compounding drag. This creates a balanced portfolio, 1 cash generator and 1 capability builder. Again, right there, how many times have you been in a meeting saying this, but you really just need that mantra of that aha thing that you can say the business people get. And they go, hey, listen, this other one's cool, but it's unproven. This one's a cash generator. This one's a capability builder. That's why we need to do them, right? So we would green light option B immediately. We would give option C a conditional green light, and then we would kill option A in its current form. So if leadership wants innovation, then it then tells us how to reduce option A. So if they won't let go of it, ChatGPT is already giving us alternatives to be able to think through and pitch, like how do we, we should do a 60-day, 90-day experiment and then identify metrics that could clearly kill it. How to communicate trade-offs. Do not frame this as a killing creativity, frame it as disciplined capital allocation. So first, anchor on strategy. It says our priority this year is predictable revenue growth and operational stability. For every dollar invested, the flagship feature returns approximately $2 in risk-adjusted value. Social wishing does not meet that threshold today. So social wishing is interesting, but it's not validated. We will test demand with the capped experiment before committing full capital. Right. So really nice to kind of give you through that piece. Let's see if the answer is the same from Claude. It's going through its must do. So it's saying option B, flagship, is must do. Option C, infrastructures are conditional, and kill social wishing. So that it agrees, and Claude does it the same. Claude gives you a 1-sentence summary, though. It says build the flagship feature now, modernize infrastructure starting month 2, and run a $15,000 validation sprint on social wishing to find out what that can tell us, right? So again, great answers, wonderful way to think through it. And you see how quickly we can just feed it data, and it can help us prepare for a meeting and prepare for some of these tough decisions that we have to make. So to wrap up this episode, we talked about net operating value, which is your expected value minus your effort, your risk, and your opportunity cost. Great PMs will think like portfolio manager, not just a project manager, which means even though you may just be focused on this one project, by doing some of the things that we're talking about here, it allows us to communicate at a portfolio level, which again is protecting our project a little bit further. And then AI can really help you stress test assumptions and quantify trade-offs. It's phenomenal, at least generating ideas to think about. So your non-negotiable experiment for this episode is to run the NOV calculator on a current project and identify the one assumption that, if wrong, kills the entire value case. And then I want you to test it. And what you should note is, does calculating NOV change how you talk about your project's value? And how do executives respond to a business case that includes an opportunity cost, or even some of the framing that we've talked about in stress testing our value? Now, next time, we're going to talk about one of my favorite topics of all time, which is influence without authority and how to lead when you can't command. So a lot of people feel like, project managers I've heard command and control is like, look, I'm not in charge of anybody. It wasn't my idea. This isn't my people. It's not my budget. So how do I actually influence a project if I have no authority in it? So that's what we'll talk about in the next episode. We hope you join us soon. This has been AI Driven PM with Rick Morris. I'm Rick Morris, and this has been AI Driven PM. Keep protecting your people, telling the truth, and making dreams come true.